Good evening, BookTube. I'm going to do a tag video because I think that is a good way to try and get into making videos. So I'm going to do this cryptid tag, which I think Steve Dunne created a couple of weeks ago. And I watched a couple of videos and I enjoyed them. So I'm going to use this as a way of maybe trying to get into the video making thing on a more regular basis. So question 1. A cryptid is a mystery animal whose fans say it definitely could exist. How do you deal with books recommended to you by their fervent true believers? So I have found in the past that when somebody presses a book into my hands, that is generally a disaster, because it means that I'm not going to read that book and I can never see that person ever again. Okay, question 2. Cryptozoology is typically mocked as a pseudoscience pursued by charlatans and scientific illiterates, and yet it's oddly fun to investigate. Name a non-cryptology kind of book that's likewise fun, though deeply, deeply flawed. I once read a book in a bookshop, which was a memoir by a glamour model called Jordan, UK glamour model, quite well known in the UK, and it was formally structured in a very amusing way, which was basically that each chapter related to one of her ex-partners or boyfriends or whatever, and each one of them had essentially let her down by virtue of some sexual dysfunction or sexual inadequacy. So it was pretty funny to read. Okay, so question 3. A Cryptid Water-Monsters, a favourite water-related book. So I'm going to pick A Passage to Juno by Jonathan Raban, which is a book I got. My father bought it for me. It was when it was first published, not because it was a book he knew I would be particularly interested in, because of the type of book that it turned out to be, but because I'd just done a weekend sailing course, and it was about sailing. So Passage to Juno is about a voyage that Jonathan Raban took from Seattle up to Juneau in Alaska, along the Inside Passage, I think it's called, if memory serves me, which is a sea route that goes along the west coast of the Americas there, from Seattle up past Vancouver Island and on up to Juneau. And he took this trip on his own. He's a reasonably experienced yachtsman, I think, by the time he is taking this trip, although not hugely experienced, and there are some dangers along the way. I think he took up yachting later in life, sailing. But it's a beautifully written book, very interesting man. So beautifully, it was a lovely book. There was a lovely fold-out map, sea chart showing the Inside Passage, so I'd certainly recommend that. Question 4. Cryptid Dog-Monsters, a favourite book about a dog or dog-like creature. So I'm going to choose a children's book, a book I read when I was a child, called Run with the Wind, I think it was called, by Tom McCaughrean, an Irish broadcaster and children's writer. And it's a story of foxes living in a glen in Wicklow, their various sort of adventures, encroachment of man on their lives. So it's ecologically very sound book. It was written either in the 70s or very early 80s, which is when I would have read it. A beautiful book about foxes. And actually that reminds me, I think I must get that book for my own children. Question 5. Cryptid Biped-Monsters, a favourite book featuring a hominid who isn't Homo sapiens. So I'm gonna say I like comic books a lot, graphic novels, graphic literature, European, American, Japanese. I don't mind. But one thing I have noticed is whenever I see a talking gorilla character in a comic book, I love it. I don't know why that is, but I just generally find that great. So, for example, I think in Alan Moore's Tom Strong books, there's a talking ape. There's a Marvel series called Agents of Atlas, which has a talking ape. So, yeah, I'm all in if there's a talking ape. Question 6. Cryptid Avian-Monsters, a favourite book featuring a bird. For this I'm going to pick The Peregrine by J.A. Baker, which was published in 1967, I think, but which recently was published again by the New York Review of Books, a very nice edition. This book is a classic of nature writing. It follows a diary between October and April of Mr. Baker, who's a bird watcher, going about rural Essex and the estuary there, and his observations of the activities of a particular peregrine falcon. But what's wonderful about this book is the way he enters the world of the falcon, the way he describes nature. It's an extremely meditative book. It's been cited by many people as an influence. Ted Hughes, Werner Herzog recommends it, I think, as an essential book for film students. And if you're interested in a discussion of that book, there is an excellent one on the Entitled Opinions podcast, and I'll put a link to that below. But a lovely book. So, question 7. Cryptid Cat-Monsters. A favourite book featuring a cat, and you get extra points if the cat is terrifyingly enormous. Well, I'm not going to get that extra point, but or maybe I will. I'm going to pick The Leopard by Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa. The leopard in question is the Prince of Selena, main character of the book. It's one of my favourite novels. It's beautifully written, historical piece, and just creates this sumptuous world, and really brings it to life. It's an astonishing text, and it's about a way of life that disappears and yet persists. So, highly recommended. So, question 8. Are you, in fact, a cryptid? Give yourself 1 point for each yes answer. So, how do I know if I'm a cryptid? Are you often met by disbelief or even horror by those who encounter you? I think I'm a pretty okay person, but I have been known to express myself in unwelcome terms from time to time. Tendency I've tried to ameliorate as I've grown older. So I'm giving myself a point for having occasionally horrified people. Next question. Are there people in the world who consider you mostly or entirely mythical? I think that I am all too real, so no point for that. And the next question, is there anything about you that science finds puzzling? Pretty ordinary punter. I don't think science has anything else to deal with here. In your natural state, do you typically emit odd noises or odors? Of course I do. I'm a horrible human being, and I generally wander about in a fog of my own horrible emissions. Okay, are you an evolutionary dead end scorned by the modern world? Well, I have reproduced. I have fulfilled my genetic destiny in that regard. So in that sense, I'm surplus to genetic requirements now, but not a dead end. And do you occasionally exhibit near human levels of intelligence? Very nearly, but not quite. Okay, thank you.